Over the last 3 months, I've designed 12 unique 3D prints for tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons, and many of them are the first of their kind. Starting with a design that nearly everybody needs when they're at a tabletop, but also brings a few extra features to the table. Now, before we get into all of that, if you like any of the designs in this video enough to want to print them for yourselves, you can find all of them on my Patreon linked in the description. But more on that later on in the video. For now, just sit back and enjoy. And let's coast into this first design. Yes, these are ttrpg drink coasters. And they have 2 obvious features and 1 sneaky one that actually makes these very useful at the table. First, of course, these do function as drink coasters. I designed them with 4 different textures, like brick, wood, and stone. But beyond these just rocking visually, they also make it so that your drink won't suction to the coaster when you pick it up. The second obvious feature, though, is the fact that these are designed after a standard 1-inch battle map grid, which means that you can use them to visualize your next move while you're waiting for your turn, slap them together to form an impromptu battle map, or more likely just fidget with your minis if you're not using them as a coaster. But if those are the obvious features, then what is the sneaky one? Well, you may have noticed these ridges along the sides of the coasters. Well, that's not just a visual detail, it's actually made to hold cards. Things like spell or item cards, or even name cards if you're at a new table. I also designed some thematic storage as well, so you have a place to keep all the coasters when you're not using them, so cheers to you. But now I think a lot of people are going to be split on this next design. First of all, just ignore the paint job on this, okay? It's not one of my strengths. But this concept is pretty straightforward. This is a dice tower with 2 sides in the tray, which means that there's about a 50-50 chance of a die rolling into either side of the tray when you roll it in the tower. And while there are some subtle mechanics at play here, which I'll get to in a moment, why would you even want to use this in the first place? Well, you could use this as a simple coin flip mechanic or as a more brutal death saving throw, with one side being heads or success and the other side being tails or fails. You could also randomly allocate different types of damage types for different weapon attacks that may have multiple dice at play. For instance, a oxymoronic hot and cold fireball. Or you can just use it as a regular dice tower. I'm not in charge of you. You can do whatever you want. But here's the subtle part. Most dice towers would allow you to abuse this mechanic by rolling frequently on one side or the other to influence which side of the tray the die comes out on. And while that is not completely gone with this design, I have taken steps to minimize it. You see, each ramp is slightly curved so that the die is always influenced towards the middle. You can see that a bit more clearly on the second ramp, so that by the time it reaches the bottom, it's more likely to go right down the middle for that random split. Next, we have a fully printable Dungeoneer's pack. Look, nearly every D&D character has some form of starting equipment, and for a lot of players, keeping track of what's in that equipment pack and visualizing how you might use it can be kind of difficult. So I modeled every item in a Dungeoneer's pack to make it a little bit easier to keep track of what you have in your inventory. We have our 50-foot rope, rations, water skin, and so on. I also made it so that every item fits nicely inside a 1-inch grid in case you ever want to place them down during a battle. And this is just one of several designs on this list that I plan to expand on later. So let me know in the comments what other inventory items you would like to see. This is a dog. This is Theodore. He's a good boy. But okay, this is a potted plant, but at the root of it is so much more, because this is actually a secret ttrpg battle station. Let's start at the top. This leaf is actually a D2, which you can use as a coin flip if you're in a pinch, but also it's a potted plant, so it has to have a leaf, otherwise what am I doing here? But if you pull up the stem, you will unearth 5 layers of hidden dice storage that can hold over 80 dice total, keeping them safe and clean even though they're technically in the dirt. Once you've unearthed your dice though, you can actually flip over the pot to find a battle map grid. This can be used however you want, of course, but I think it makes a great stand-in for elevated terrain or maybe the second story of a building if you're in a pinch. Beneath the pot, however, is the tray, which has 1 obvious use and 2 less obvious uses. The obvious use, of course, is that you can use it as a dice tray. Second though, if you've been paying close attention, you'll know that these ridges along the side can actually be used to hold cards just like the coasters. Finally though, there's another hidden battle map underneath the tray, because in my opinion, if you're printing this out, you might as well be able to use every inch of it. But look, sometimes you don't want a secret potted plant ttrpg battle station. Sometimes you just want a sword that rolls its own damage whenever you swing it. And so I took a stab at exactly that. So this is a short sword that rolls its own damage when you swing it. The design principle here is very simple. There's a compartment in the guard of the sword that holds a D6. Seal that up, and now you can swing the sword to rocket the D6 to this viewing window. Is this chaotic? Yes. Is this convenient to use? Not really. But did I still make one that's much bigger with a lot more stuff? Yes again. But wait till the end to see that one. Wait, it's right behind me, isn't it? Now we have 7 more unhinged designs to check out in this video, but first a word from today's sponsor, Patreon. Or in other words, maybe you. You see, every design in this video was made possible by my incredible Patreon community. Every single week I make a new 3D printable tabletop design and upload it to my Patreon. And my supporters on Patreon get access to all of those files no matter when you join. I've also started doing giveaways for both my free and paid members, like this Bamboo Lab A1 Mini that I gave away last month. If you join today, you get access to all of the designs in this video, plus all future ones as long as you're a paying member. So a huge thank you to all my Patreon supporters that you see on screen, and if you want to support these kinds of projects and print them for yourself, you can join my Patreon using the link in the description of the video. But now, let's get back to it. Okay, this next one is for my rogues out there, but I have to say something first. I know that rules as written, this is a partial abomination in the eyes of our coastal wizardly overlords, but by God, I did it anyway. Because this is a Thieves' Cant cipher. In 2 forms. Now, I call this a Thieves' Cant cipher because it was originally designed with rogues and Thieves' Cant in mind, allowing rogues to decipher in-game messages in real life based on encrypted messages provided by the DM. But this can of course be used as an interactive prop for any kind of encryption or espionage, so use it however you think would fit your table the best. This is a cipher plate which you can use easily, simply aligning each letter with each symbol. But for something a bit more immersive, I also designed a set of wearable Thieves' Cant jewelry in the form of these medallions and spacers that you string onto filament and that are held together with these D20 clasps, which players can then line up to decipher messages. This of course isn't for everyone or for every table, but let me know in the comments if you think it's for you. But in either case, let's look at cracking the code on this next design. Now, if you're anything like me, you have solved the same puzzle in the same dungeon in the same game dozens or even hundreds of times. And if you're thinking that you don't know what I'm talking about, you certainly will when I show you this. And perhaps it's because this concentric puzzle has been burned into my psyche every few months since 2011, but I decided to make a working version of that puzzle in real life. And this is it. To open this puzzle, you have to align the 3 correct symbols with the arrow, which when you align the correct symbols will allow you to open this door, inside of which you can keep a note or simply use the act of opening it to represent making it through the puzzle in game. I even made a super basic mini version of this to put on a battle map if you wanted to represent this as an actual door. But perhaps the best part of this is that you can program this puzzle yourself. This works because the backside of each ring has these divots, and the door has these catches so that if it's not perfectly lined up, it won't be able to come out. I plan to create more iterations and improvements on this in the future, but in the meantime, it's one of my favorite props to use at the table, because players really do love an interactive puzzle. Moving on. Okay, these are some pumpkin-themed things. We have a pumpkin golem dice tower, a pumpkin golem mini, and a pumpkin with a machine gun. Don't ask me why. And well, that actually covers it for these, so let's move on. Okay, but now we're going to try to solve a problem that has plagued tables for decades, and that's keeping up with the conditions. Okay, sure, you can use condition rings, but what if you have a ton of conditions stacked up on your mini? Or what if you play in Theater of the Mind? I don't care how organized you claim to be, it can be very tricky to keep track of how many conditions and which conditions you have, let alone the conditions of others, especially when you're not actively in combat. And so introducing, sorry, these don't fit with my hat on, wearable condition markers. For blinded, you wear glasses because they're fashionable. Restrained are manacles that you wear around your wrist, like so. And exhaustion is a series of 6 rings. And that's all I've made of these so far. But I want to eventually fill out the entire condition list, so let me know in the comments which ones I should prioritize making next, and how you think they might look. Now think fast, have you ever found yourself torn between wanting a dice tower or a dice jail? Well, what if I told you that you could have both? Introducing the 2-state dice tower. This tower functions by rotating this inner core and aligning this arrow with one of the 2 symbols. The staircase symbol causes the die to go out the front door, whereas this jail symbol causes the dice to tumble into the dungeon below. Dice tower mode and dice jail mode. And no, there is no way out of the dungeon. That's kind of half the point of it, but you can also just turn it upside down. dice. So now, after your d20 rolls a 1 on that persuasion check for the dragon, you can just chuck the die into the tower, never to be seen again, just like your character. But getting a bit whimsical here, I made a set of spinning top dice, ranging all the way from a d4 to a d20, and in several different styles. Now, some of these spin better than others, some of them look better than others, and this is very much a version 1 of these designs. I want to make different iterations that spin better, that look better, and have other interesting features that I have in mind. But with that being said, let's spin off into the last design of the video, which is a swing to roll greatsword. This is my swing to roll greatsword. It is a follow-up from the short sword, of course, but I've added a couple of important modifications. First of all, I'm 5'12", okay? Look how big this thing is. And yes, it feels incredible to hold, but let me show you what's under the hood. So this D20 cap encloses where you store your D20, because unlike the swing to roll short sword, this one rolls a D20. Because when you swing this carefully, it will rocket the D20 down the blade and into the viewing window. Observe. But you can also keep extra dice, like, I don't know, 2d6, in this little dice cage at the bottom, which you can use to roll the dice when you swing the sword, or just as dice storage, whatever you'd like. Now this is not convenient to use unless you're like in an open field, but that is not why we do it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. It does a ton for me in boosting this video to others who might like it as well. If you want to print any of these designs for yourself, or simply want to support the creation of these insane designs, check out my Patreon using the link in the description of the video. And until I see you next time, have an excellent, excellent day.